A leverage ratio is meant to evaluate a company's debt level. The most common leverage ratio are the debt ratio, debt to equity ratio, and time interest earned. A debt ratio is simply a company's total debt divided by its total asset. For example, if company XYZ had RM 10 million of debt on its balance sheet and RM 15 million of asset, then company XYZ debt ratio is equivalent to 0.67. This means that for every ringgit of company XYZ asset, company XYZ had RM 0.67 cent of debt. A ratio above 1 indicates that the company has more debt than asset. The debt to equity ratio is a measure of the relationship between the capital contributed by creditors and the capital contributed by the owner. It also shows the extent to which shareholders' equity can fulfill a company obligation to creditors in the event of a liquidation. A high debt to equity ratio indicates that the business owner may not be providing sufficient equity to fund the business. The formula is total debt divided by total equity. For example, if company XYZ had RM 10 million of debt on its balance sheet and RM 10 million of total equity, then company XYZ debt to equity ratio is equivalent to 1. This means that for every 1 ringgit of company XYZ owned by the shareholders, company XYZ owes 1 ringgit to creditors. It is important to note that there are many ways to calculate the debt to equity ratio, and therefore it is important to be clear about what type of debt and equity are being used when comparing debt to equity ratio. Another type of leverage ratio is time interest earned. The formula is earning before interest and tax, or EBIT, divided with interest expense. Earning before interest and tax is the same as operating profit. Time interest earned measures the firm's ability to cover its interest charges out of its operating profit. The higher the ratio, the higher the firm's ability to fulfill interest obligation. Failure to meet this obligation might expose the firm to the risk of bankruptcy, as the creditor can take legal action against the firm. There are some possible causes of high leverage ratio. Number 1, the company may be borrowing more than is necessary. This could be due to firm high dividend payout ratio, so leaving less retained profit for expansion purpose. Therefore, the company has to rely more on external financing such as borrowing. So, suggestion to improve leverage ratio. Firms should have an optimum mixture of sources of financing. This will result in the lowest cost of capital, hence maximize the firm value.